ensemble. Pour que la reprise fonctionne, il faudra renforcer l'accès universel aux services publics, services essentiels.
Di qualità della democrazia, di cooperazione. Noi ci dobbiamo dare una mano perché mai come questa volta abbiamo
Fellow mayors and dear friends, I would like to start my intervention by reminding that local democracy is at the core of who we are as a movement.
各位专家、市长们、朋友们，大家好。今天我们通过鼠标清点和大家见面。而在2000多年前，
Les citoyens savent comment procéder. Pas de promesses, pas de grands discours, mais une gouvernance efficace, car gouverner pour nous, c'est agir.
Our solutions need to be holistic, and the local space is the perfect place to connect.
Guide these initiatives of all local communities in the right direction, even though
getting cities right and addressing local government capacity, paying special attention to intermediary cities and inhabitants
Todos y todas merecen igualdad de oportunidades, igualdad de derechos, igualdad de libertades en nuestras sociedades.
Do you remember how it felt like when we came together and we could hug each other and welcome each other? I hope you felt a little bit of that with these introductions. These were your voices. Welcome everybody to the 2021 UCLG Executive Bureau. As you know, we come together twice a year. We have been working quite hard already for a couple of days. We have been discussing housing, we've been discussing migration, we've been discussing the future of development, and we have a very interesting program with us. I have my colleagues, Carole Morignon and Massimo Perino, that are going to run us through the day very quickly. Carole Morignon, please, the floor is yours.
Oui, merci beaucoup, Emilia. Donc, effectivement, en 2 mots, le programme de cet après-midi. Nous commençons à 14h30 avec la Commission des affaires statutaires. Les membres aborderont, entre autres, la question du Forum des régions et les préparatifs du prochain congrès mondial de CGLU, l'année prochaine déjà à Daejeon. Et nous finirons la journée avec la réunion du NACLA qui commencera à 17h.
Merci bien, Carole, and welcome, Massimo Perino. What do we have next?
Thank you very much, Emilia. Hello, everyone. And now for the opening high-level policy dialogue on inclusive digitalization, key topic for our constituency, and now made all the more important after the pandemic.
Indeed, we could not imagine that digitalization, access to internet, information technology, knowledge management were going to be so important for us. And I am delighted to present to you a very impressive panel, in fact, that is going to be led by our co-president, Jan van Zanen, the mayor of The Hague. He's already with us, and he is accompanied also by the vice president of Microsoft, Hugh Eaton, by Noirani Roslan, the mayor of Subang Jaya, by the city councillor of Bilbao, Wane Aguirregoitia, and we also have and expect to see with us the mayor of Johannesburg and the mayor of Kigali. You can see some of them already here behind me in the screens. Co-President Van Zanen, the floor is yours to open this debate. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Emilia. How are you all, dear members of our Executive Bureau, dear partners, mayors, dear friends? I miss you all intensely. It is a great pleasure to welcome you to the Executive Bureau and to the opening of the high-level policy dialogue. Our Bureau meets twice a year, gathering around 200 local political representatives from around the world. Over 3 days of work, we exchange information on the work program of the organization and put the focus on issues that will impact the policies of our membership. And I'm delighted to welcome you to our midst. Today, we're addressing a critical topic, one that the pandemic brought to the forefront, and that we need to consider now in a very different scale. While the relevance of technology in every area of our lives is not a new issue, its use and the pertinence has increased exponentially. It has allowed us, for instance, to continue doing fundamental work, keeping much of our workforce productive. It has allowed education to carry on. It has brought culture to our homes when we could not get to the museums or the theaters. And it has also made evident some of the profound divides in our societies and increased concerns around our most fundamental rights, such as privacy, information access, and freedom of expression. That is why, dear friends, it is important to understand the concept of digitalization well beyond technology. An important part of our local service provision has gone full digital in a record time. In many places around the world, we have had to support our senior citizens in the use of technologies. We've had to support families with hardware to allow children to access online schooling. And we had to enhance our infrastructures and the access to them. Our actions, dear friends, have been guided by the emergency, but it's now high time to think about the long term. Many of our members have been discussing the risks and the opportunities under the Cities Coalition for Digital Rights. The productivity possibilities of the digital era are just coming into view. How we harness these possibilities will be a matter of policy and corporate strategy. And much will depend on how intelligence tools will be put to use. And the increasing use of these tools has already exposed tension between public governance and private governance. We need to decide together how to use big data analytics, artificial intelligence, robotics, and sensors. Technology, dear friends, does not in itself define the way forward. We need to guide it. And this is where we as local governments come into play. It is possible to choose the kind of society that will result from the digital platform economy. Our objective is to ensure that technology does not deepen inequalities, but that it helps us to enhance democracy, improve the quality of life, decrease the use of natural resources, and foster the development of individual potentials for our citizens. Important reforms will be needed in terms of governance and legislation. New partnerships will need to be developed with the private sector, and new public platforms will need to be developed with a stronger public monitoring of artificial intelligence. We're happy to see that our focus on digitalization is finding its way to the top of the international agendas. Smart cities are a priority of the current G20 presidency and is a key priority of the Urban 20. As we enter the recovery, we need to ensure that digital technologies are no longer seen as commodities, but as part of the commons, the public goods that belong to all. The smart cities and regions that we need will only be possible through empowered citizens. As local and regional governments, we have a role to play in ensuring technologies respond to real needs. Dear friends, dear colleagues, dear partners, I look forward to the exchanges today. We might not have all the answers, but coming together to develop a common agenda is already an important step forward. The next steps of the technology era are too important to leave to a single sector or stakeholder. Let us all ensure that the great potential of technology powers the creativity and the capacities of our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Co-President Van Zanen and Mayor of The Hague. I think you have given an excellent frame for this discussion, and I am delighted to go now immediately with some of the first inputs. You have said it is the future of service provision, but there are many aspects that we need to take into account. Accessibility, making sure we leave no one and no place behind. And I am very happy to introduce to you Ms. Marlene Abigail Sombillo Binay, the Mayor of Makati. Madam, the floor is yours. Thank you for joining us.
Nice to see you again. In behalf of the city of Makati, I would like to express my gratitude for being able to join you today. 3 years before the COVID-19 pandemic struck, Makati City's digital transformation had begun. As soon as needed reforms were in place to restore efficiency and compassion in the delivery of basic services and implementation of programs, my administration focused on laying down the building blocks for a smart Makati. Aside from investing in modernizing our DRRM equipment and human resource capability building, we also entered into partnerships with IT industry leaders to launch 3 digital initiatives: the Makati Zen Card, the Makati Zen app, and the Makati Public Wi-Fi system at no cost to the city. At the time, we were preparing a worst-case scenario induced by a major earthquake, super typhoon, or a terrorist attack. We never thought of a pandemic. Fortunately for us, all of our preparations were not in vain. Our intense training across all levels of the organization made it possible for us to immediately shift gears and operate on emergency mode when the pandemic reached our shores. When the president declared the Luzon-wide lockdown in March last year, we instantly activated our incident command system and established our incident command post to ensure continuity of services. We were able to mobilize our resources to provide urgent relief assistance to vulnerable sectors and the general populace. The Makati Zen card came in handy in the contactless distribution of cash assistance to hundreds of thousands of affected residents. The Makati Zen app significantly improved the city's responsiveness to emergencies, including serious COVID-19 cases, as well as it allows users to report these to the command center. We've also made it to the access point to the My Makati free Wi-Fi service, which is supported by the fiber optic cable loop installed in our 27 barangays to our PPP-led initiative. And access to free internet connection has boosted citizen engagement through our social media platforms and has helped public school students cope with online classes during the pandemic. It has proven useful to Makatizens as well in registering online for our free COVID-19 vaccination program. Based on our experience, digital technology offers local and national government limitless opportunities to achieve inclusive recovery from the pandemic and to lead their people towards a resilient and sustainable future. We have learned from this pandemic that digital channels are the easiest way for the government to reach its constituents and serve their needs amidst quarantine situations. Thus, local governments must be able to rise to the occasion and provide solutions that will adapt to the new normal. In Makati, there are creations of various online service portals that enable the local government to continue its most basic services, from health services, safety management to social services and humanitarian assistance in the midst of the pandemic, without compromising the safety of our constituents and civil servants. On the business side, we have established an online tax payment portal as an initial step towards our envisioned contactless transactions that will help eliminate corruption and promote transparency. The pandemic has dramatically changed the way we serve our people. We now have to rely heavily on technology to effectively adopt remote governance. As face-to-face transactions and collaboration have become impractical and unsafe, government leaders must initiate a thorough review of existing manual processes by expert analysts. We must find ways to improve these processes using digital tools and be willing to reassess our plans and recalibrate our goals and priorities to ensure that these remain relevant and true to our commitment to the greater good. The pandemic has caused disruptions that prompted cities, nations, businesses, and industries to fast-track their digital transformation. The emerging skills mismatch between education and industry is one of the biggest challenges that needs to be addressed. As we know, vulnerable populations most likely lack the desired digital skills to meet industry demands, thus exacerbating unemployment problems. Government leaders and the private sector, together with the academy, must collaborate and combine every available resource to bridge this gap and promote higher employability among vulnerable groups. In Makati, we're committed to the continuing modernization of our public schools and supporting efforts of the Department of Education to bring students up to speed with the digital age. We plan to establish a digital school complete with IT equipment and fast Wi-Fi connection to make digital natives out of our young Makatizens. Pandemic or not, digital technologies are definitely the way forward in attaining healthier and safer communities that uphold human dignity. Improved accessibility, flexibility, and efficiency of healthcare have been noted in both public and private facilities that adopted medical digital technologies. The pandemic has underscored the importance of embracing digital technologies in the field of public health. At our city-run Hospital ng Makati, we are able to harness our existing hospital information management system to implement the e-consult telemedicine program for our outpatients. Its primary purpose was to provide doctors with quick access to patients' medical records during consultations, but has since evolved to meet the need for a safer alternative to going to the hospital and risking exposure to the virus. At the community level, technology-driven solutions are vital to building resilience to disasters in all phases, from disaster preparation and mitigation to response, recovery, and rehabilitation. Given the challenges faced by highly urbanized cities, it is important for local leaders to adapt to the digital age and conceptualize innovative ways to meet these challenges, including growing risks posed by climate change. Harnessing technology and governance will certainly improve the delivery and quality of services and at the same time promote transparency. It will also remove the traditional boundaries between government and the people and bring government services closer to the intended recipients. Just like my fellow local leaders, I envision my city as a smart city that is future ready, with its sustained prosperity shared by all citizens and empowering them to attain their full potential. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mayor, for giving us this excellent overview of Makati's experience before and during the pandemic. For also emphasizing how important it is, the type of shift that we also need to do in mentality. We always say that a smart city is only as smart as the citizens and only as powerful as the amount of people that can actually access the service. And we're going to stay in the region. And I would like to give the floor to the mayor of Subang Jaya, Noraini Roslan. With your vision on this important topic, you are also a very active champion of UCLG in our policy council on the right to the city. The floor is yours, dear Noraini.
Thank you, Amelia. I'm so glad to see that everybody that I know of in Spain is doing well, and for the rest of the world also. We must thank God every day that COVID has not attacked us yet. But it's sad to say that my office has been declared a cluster for COVID because almost 80 people from my department, from my office has been affected, even though it has slowed down and only 14 cases are active now. But we thought that it is far away, but when it hits us, then we realize that COVID is there, that everybody must abide to the standard operating procedures, the new norms, that it can affect us, that it is real, that it will affect how we work, how we go to school, how we live, and are we prepared to live in this time of COVID and the impact that it's going to have on our society later. During the movement control order, it has definitely changed the way we interact with each other. When physical meetings are impossible, we have to rely on the internet to be connected and to do our businesses and official interaction online. at the local government level, we have been moving towards smart city for quite some times now. And for Subang Jaya, we have almost completed the fiberization for connectivity in all of our area, thanks to the utilities companies that works with us. But it is from point-to-point connection that still concerns me, because we still need the smart poles, the Wi-Fi, of which there are two groups that I'm worried about that may not get this connectivity. One is the small businesses, the petty traders, and secondly, the children that stays in the low-cost houses where the parents cannot afford to buy a data plan or to buy the gadget to get them connected to the schooling system online that is going on during the MCO. So Subang Jaya has been trying to get to these two groups. Firstly, for the small petty traders, we have been developing platforms to get them to register online and to market their products online. And even to get to these small businesses, some of them we can't get to by telephones or by emails, that we still have to go on the ground and get to them and tell them that we have this system, that we have this platform, please do join in and you can market your product there. And we will guide them on how to register and how to take photos of their products and post it online, and how to receive orders and cater for the new way of doing business. Because during the movement control order, people can't get to them. And then they need to earn their living, whether they are already in the small businesses or whether they need to start a new business because they lost their job because they are being laid off. So that has been our focus, and we cannot do it alone. We are working with the state link agencies to develop all these platforms, whether it is called e-kitchen, where they can market their food products, or other products that they can start their businesses online. We are preparing guidelines for them how to start business online if it doesn't involve a larger scale that does not create disturbance or offenses to their neighbors. That how do we allow these businesses to be conducted within the residential areas? That needs new guidelines. We also need to register them so that regulations and monitoring can be applied to these new type of businesses. And for these businesses, once we have them registered, it is easier for the state government to subsidize them. Like for example, during the Ramadan, where we are fasting, and we normally have this bazaar that sell foods for our iftar, for the breaking of fast. And normally this is a big business where people are really, where the businesses are really into this bazaars, that their earnings can sometimes cover like 6 months of the year from these earnings alone. But because of
Thank you, Mayor.
Hello?
1 minute to wrap up.
Oh, okay. So that is the small businesses. And my second worry is about the children of the poor who cannot afford the gadgets and the connectivity, on how they can learn properly so that they are not lagging behind or they're not deprived of proper education. So how do we work with the utility companies, with the state government to provide access and gadgets to these poor households so that their children can learn? Okay. Thank you, Amelia. I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I know that the experiences are very large and the time is too short, but thank you for sharing with us what parts of the population you feel you need to focus on. And from that part of the world, from Asia Pacific, we are going to move to Africa. And I understand we already have with us the Mayor of Kigali, Prudence Rubinsiga. I would like to give you the floor, sir. Are you there? The mayor of Kigali, are you there? I think we're having some connectivity issues with the mayor. If that is so, then what I propose to do is to go to Europe and to go to Christian Speck, the first deputy mayor of Mannheim in Germany. Are you ready?
Yes. Hello, Emilia, and dear Mayor van Zaan, dear friends and colleagues, greetings from Peter Kurz. He can't be with us today, so it's my part to tell you a little bit about our experience of digitalization and the pandemic. Yeah, the COVID-19 pandemic has been a remarkable test of our approach to digitalization in Mannheim. And I think it's the same in Mannheim and in other cities. We have seen the strength of our past efforts to digitize, but also some heavy weaknesses that must be remedied. At the heart of our digitalization efforts is the question of access. As schools switched to remote learning and many workers were asked to do their job from home, we were reminded that not all people have equal access to the internet. So in Mannheim, we are now working to ensure that previously underserved peripheral areas of the city has access to high-speed internet connections. At the same time, we acknowledge that without the necessary skills, residents will be unable to use the digital services. So we are actively offering opportunities for residents to learn how to use digital technology. Citizens can access a low-threshold advisory service in our city library, a program that will be expanded in the coming years. Finally, we are grounding our efforts to digitalize in the belief that we can leave no one behind. You just already mentioned it. We are committed to implementing the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And of course, we have been committed to the rights and interests of our disabled citizens since long before it came into force. So we are currently developing a new local action plan for the implementation of the convention that addresses digital issues that have arisen in recent years. We need to think about inclusivity from the beginning when we design new digital applications. Mannheim offers training to city employees to sensitize them to inclusive issues. We also constantly solicit feedback from our residents who face accessibility issues. An exchange with the associations for the disabled in Mannheim last summer revealed that our citizens' service software needed to be significantly improved. So as a result, we redesigned our digital application from the ground up with a focus on accessibility and user-friendliness. In another exchange, we discovered that blind people were struggling to access current corona figures on the internet due to the way the data was posted. This gave our service provider the idea to generate a finder with a simple output of results, which can be processed with a screen reader. The data is automatically updated every night, giving blind people access to current information about the pandemic. This success on a small scale has given us the idea to implement similar solutions for other topics. Although the pandemic has highlighted the need for digital solutions, it has also shown that these digital tools cannot fully replace our analog ones, at least not yet. In Mannheim, we saw this clearly when COVID forced us to limit access to cities' public pools last summer. Without an analog alternative to a digital appointment booking system, residents with limited access to technology were unable to use the service. We learned from this experience how important it is to offer alternatives like telephone hotlines to those citizens. Digitalization does not stop with service provision. Local governments have an important role to play in fostering innovation and digitalization in the private sector as well. In Mannheim, we have invested in 8 startup centers, including one devoted to female entrepreneurs. These spaces allow startups to harness the resources the city has to offer, from newly graduated tech talent to connections with major intelligent companies. Our investment benefits the entire city as the startups create new services, solutions, and job opportunities for our residents. We also think beyond our city limits. Mannheim's mission statement, based on the Agenda 2030 and the input of 2,500 residents, remind us that in order to achieve our broader goals, we must think more globally. Using the know-how from Mannheim's own startup ecosystem and federal funding, we developed a startup center in Hebron, Palestine. The center aims to promote innovation and digitalization and enrich the local economy. As mayors, we have an important role to play in ensuring that digitalization leaves no one behind, from disabled residents in our own city to our friends around the world. So we can decide whether we want digitalization to exacerbate inequalities or bring people together and promote equality. Thanks a lot from Mannheim.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor. Greetings to the mayor. Indeed, we know that Mannheim is both very active in United Cities and local governments, but also doing very important work in terms of accessibility and inclusion. And we welcome your remarks on this issue, because tomorrow we are going to be celebrating the worldwide day on awareness raising about accessibility. And I think it's really important to put that subject higher on our agenda and to make the link with the service provision of the future and digitalization in particular. So thank you very much for these inputs. I am not sure, I know that the mayor of Kigali is with us, but with some sound problems. I don't know whether he's ready yet. I understand not. Let us go then to the Vice President of Microsoft. We are very happy to have you with us, Hugh. We want to hear what your company is doing. We have been working together at international level, covering the challenges of the pandemic. You have heard the mayors that have talked a lot about access and inclusion. Some thoughts from your side, and thank you for joining our Executive Bureau high-level discussions.
Okay, well, thank you. It's a really great pleasure to be here. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect.
Okay, all right. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for giving me a bit of time. I think it's important that, you know, the public and the private sector get together to address some of these issues. And wherever you are in the world, I hope that the pandemic is in some form of or as manageable a condition it can be. What's curious about it is that we've all experienced the same pandemic, but actually experienced it in very different ways. And I think several of the mayors here have spoken very eloquently about some of the consequences of the digital divide, about how some individuals have really been very significantly affected by the working constraints and others less so. And I think the way we see it, there's probably three principal strands that we would look to talk to governments about. I think the first of those is about modernizing the infrastructure itself. That needs a good, cold, hard look. I think one of the previous speakers mentioned this about getting in and understanding what it is that you currently have. Or governments currently have. What is clear is that those governments who had already made some investments in digital connectivity and modernizing their infrastructure were very much more prepared, capable, and able to transition to that remote hybrid work that we have experienced. And of course, what we all know is that there's no going back. I mean, we're not going to go back to what we had before. We're going to, you know, several of the government ministers that I work with in the UK talk about putting the chocks in. if you imagine sort of putting the chocks behind a sort of aircraft's wheels to make sure it doesn't roll back. And I'll give you an example, because the pandemic has been terrible, but there will be benefits to societies as to some of the lessons we've learned. A good example was given to me by the chief executive of the National Health Service in the UK, and he talked about, and it was Simon Stevens at the time, although he's due to move on. He talked about the age-old routine in the United Kingdom that somebody would phone up in the morning feeling ill, they'd phone their local GP, they'd be told to come in at a particular time and to sit down with their as yet undesignated ailment next to 15 or 20 other people who also had undesignated ailments, to sit around in close proximity in the same room for an hour or so, and then have 5 minutes with the doctor, and then get a prescription or some advice, and off they went. Well, if you think of it, regardless of the pandemic constraints, that's just not a very sensible way of dealing with health. and so that's just one data point where, when we think about things like, remote consultations and a digital value chain between a doctor and a pharmacy and a patient, such that we are reducing the human connection points along the way, you can see that there will be progress that comes out of this. I think the second piece, so that's about modernizing infrastructure, because we're not going to go back. We're only going to see, if you think about the motive forces of globalization and urbanization, we're only going to see more of these sort of pandemics. So it's going to be how we manage it rather than how we avoid it. I think the second, and a couple of my previous speakers have spoken very eloquently about, technology only goes so far. And you can have the greatest technology in the world, and some countries do and some countries don't. But you need the people to manage the technology and to optimize the technology. And in every government that we work with, and recognizing that I work across the globe, that is one of the key areas we're looking at, which is skilling. Because if you talk to a private sector company about the benefits of remote virtual working, the benefits to the bottom line, that is one type of conversation. But of course, when you're talking about civil servants and doctors and nurses, we're not looking to put them out of work. We're looking to give them better work and use digitization in order to do that. And then the final point, and it lands differently in different parts of the world, and there's a different level of preeminence depending on where we are in the world, is about enabling greater citizen connectivity. This is what Satya Nadella talks about in terms of democratizing technology, taking technology everywhere. Of course, you need connectivity to do that. And one of the things that we work alongside governments with is to understand what does the underlying infrastructure look like, such that you can get genuine societal benefit and better citizen outcomes to everybody, and to be pragmatic about that. But if you think about, somebody mentioned IoT earlier, if you think about some of the benefits that we anticipate coming, and we've talked about smart cities quite a few times, that's only going to come from the sufficient connectivity to enable those benefits. Very finally, if I may, I do see some benefits coming from this. I think we've rightly talked about accessibility. I think technology is a great enabler in that area. If you think about things like voice to text, if you think about real-time translation, if you think about real-time transcription, if you think about real-time signing, I think there are real benefits about bringing more people into the workforce. And I think there's a second benefit, which is that in most countries, there is a geographical dislocation of high-paying jobs. In the UK, it happens to be in the south. in other areas it's elsewhere. But when we talk about leveling up, the challenge is that some people live a long way away from the main hubs, either of industry or of technology or of banking or of finance or whatever it may be. Actually, these remote technologies, this enablement of remote and virtual working is one of the things that we're talking to various governments about, supporting that leveling up. Because, and this is my final point, that one of the benefits is of this funny world we find ourselves in is it matters less where you live in terms of the job you might be able to get. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you very much. A very important point indeed, and we talk in our organization a lot about the territorial inequalities. It's not only inequalities in different parts of the world. We deal with inequalities within our cities, within our territories. We are also very aware that a very high percentage of the jobs that we're going to be doing in the future are actually jobs that we don't know exist yet. So a very important topic that you have brought also in terms of the localization, the location of those jobs. What I'm surprised about is that none of us have spoken yet about administrative barriers that local governments are finding to actually implement a more flexible type of service provision. And I'm hoping it will come up next now, because I understand and I see the Mayor of Kigali, Prudence, welcome to the table. Let us try whether your sound issues are solved. Are you with us, Prudence? Can you hear us? The floor is yours, yes. Mayor.
Thank you so much. I really apologize for the problems we encountered with our sound system, but I'm now back on air. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for this opportunity and the invitation given to us to, discuss and showcase some of the experiences and learning how we can digitalize our societies, especially in developing and also democratizing the access of services to other people. Digital transformation for us is being considered as a long-term commitment. It's really a journey, and like other journeys, to differentiating and growing by, I would say, examining all aspects of the businesses. So the government of Rwanda at large and the city of Kigali in particular will really continue to do more to make citizens' life more easier in this era, where all services are moving from analog to digital life. At the center of our efforts to really digitalize all our services, we need to keep data security, citizen journeys, quality and cost of services at the center of our service redesign. I would say that we see ourselves achieving what you could qualify 3 and 0, which are the zero paper, zero distance, and zero waiting time, with some of the initiatives that are being taken place currently. We think and we believe that we can really achieve that. I would again add on that some of the lessons that we learned during the current pandemic, which really pushed us and the world to redesign our living style. We have realized that we almost had everything but our citizens were not ready to embrace the new ways of service delivery. So here are some, I would say, some key lessons that we can share. Number one is the enforcement, that behind each new service, an enforcement is really needed in order to highlight all its advantages. We also had digital payment facilities, but cash payments were still leading in most of the daily transactions done by small and middle businesses. Number two is the service redesign. During the lockdown that we went through and limited movements of people and services, the mindset of our citizens changed a lot. So they had to adapt. They all realized that there is a way to get everything from home. This was achieved via different online content and trading facilities that were put in place, the online shopping, home delivery, online education, and so forth. Then the government part of performance. The government performance here, I mean the government services that are currently available to everyone without coming at the office. I always refer to IREMBO, where a citizen can get most of the services they need, and also being a facility that is limiting interactions and unnecessary movements to our citizens. We really have some good examples. Another point I want to mention, ladies and gentlemen, is the automation of services, the digital platforms that we have, and also other innovations that are changing all the way the fundamental nature of work of our lives. And we understand that this really is a shift which can help policymakers, which can help business leaders and workers to move forward. So the majority of activities that workers can carry out today can be really automated. So at the same time, job matching sites such as the LinkedIn and Job in Rwanda as examples are really changing the way individuals look for work and how companies recruit, talents. Again, independent workers also are increasingly choosing to offer these services on digital platforms, including the Upwork, the Move, the Yego Cabs, to give some of the examples in the process that really are challenging conventional ideas about how our work is being undertaken. As I conclude, I want again to mention that digitalization is a way to strengthen governance and local democracy because it is really a tool for good governance and corruption prevention. It is again an essential, tool for us that we see can help us to achieve the accountability, the transparency, and the participation of everyone. So here, the digital transformation really improves efficiency, effectiveness, as I said, transparency, and again, openness of governance to promote the sustainability and to increase accountability of civil participation in everything that we are undertaking. I want again to mention that corruption are among the most important issues that the local government is facing. So it affects really the performance of the local government entities as decentralized entities. Addressing risks of corruption is very crucial here to build effective, accountable, and transparent systems to deliver services. So we need to really promote digitalization so that accountability, transparency, and also fight strongly against corruption. I thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Very, very interesting points that you have brought, and I'm particularly thankful for you bringing to this discussion also the issue of transparency and accountability, which is extremely important for local and regional governments, and that is also very related to the way that we interact with the citizens, and now through these technologies. We are going to watch now a video. This is what I propose to you so that you can see how this dialogue is embedded in the rest of the policy discussions of United Cities and local governments towards our caring society. And then I will come back to the City Councillor of Bilbao, Agirregoitia, because she has interesting experiences, comparative experiences from around the world on digitalization, a work that we do every year together with the City of Bilbao. And then we will open the floor and we would have around half an hour to go over your priorities and whatever questions this session has triggered. Colleagues, are we ready with that video? I hope you recognize some of the discourse we have been developing this morning.
We have come to understand that public service delivery is critical for societies to protect themselves. Local and regional governments put care at the center of their efforts. They care for their communities and they care for those who are caring for us. This shift towards a brighter future needs to be a collective effort. Transformation is in our hands. Municipalism around the world is leading transformation. We are moving from inclusion to caring. We are moving from equality to a new feminist way of going about politics. We are going beyond the ecological transition and towards ecological transformation. Being in service of our communities is at the heart of everything we do. We need local democracy. We need dialogue. We need to keep listening, advocating, and learning. Everyone needs to contribute to shape the future, a shared horizon that leaves no one behind. Let us lead the way towards our common agenda. It is in our hands to unveil the new essential common goods. Culture is essential. Making technology at the service of communities is essential. Universal healthcare and access to vaccines is essential. Feminism is essential. Those that care for us are essential. Intergenerational dialogues are essential. Time is an essential good. As such, the way we spend it is unequal, and this affects our ability to enjoy our lives with dignity. We need to redesign our cities, territories, and work patterns to transform this. United Cities and local governments is here to facilitate this journey that has started in our screens. Until we shake hands again.
Hands again, we need to keep trying to deliver services in the best possible way, and digitalization and digital service provision is very important in our midst. I think a lot of the things that we have shared this morning come back in this video that tries to summarize our narrative. But I am curious if what we have been learning from cities around the world also captures some of the things that we have been discussing this morning, and whether we miss important topics still to include in our open debate. So me encanta recibirla de nuevo, concejala. Bienvenida, y a Bilbao la palabra.
Buenos días, Emilia. Un placer de nuevo estar aquí contigo y poder verte a ti y a todo el equipo y a todos los demás acompañantes en el día de hoy. Good morning, or we also say in Euskera, the ancient language of the Basques, Egunon. My name is Oiana Agirregoitia, and I am Councillor for Citizen Service Engagement and Internationalization, and I'm participating in this event on behalf of the Mayor of Bilbao, who unfortunately cannot join us today due to a health issue, but he sends his warmest regards to all of you. First of all, I'd like to thank UCLG for its invitation to participate in this high-level political dialogue on such an important issue as inclusive digitalization. The impact of COVID-19 has generated great needs and therefore new opportunities. There is no doubt that the governance of cities is based on three fundamental pillars: sustainability, resilience, and inclusion. And as a consequence of the pandemic, the need for governance at the municipal level to be coordinated, both internally as well as with the regional, national, and international governance, has been reinforced in order to be able to offer a joint, powerful, and early response to existing, present, and future threats. As a result, this new governance is supported by new technologies as they allow municipal authorities to alert of abnormal changes that occur in cities in real time, develop a predictive analysis of behaviors and trends, and facilitate a decision-making based on real data. use new technologies to respond to emergencies and respond immediately to the needs of citizens, and even more importantly, be closer to citizens and make them participate in the construction of the place where they want to live. Certainly, the rules of the game have changed, and in the last months, progress has been made very quickly in the digitalization of society. Also, I'd like to tell you that from the UCLG Digital Cities Community of Practice, which is led by City of Bilbao, we seek to promote the development of a common vision and dynamics among local governments in favor of an inclusive information society that favors the reduction of the digital divide and the use of new technologies as a lever for the development of sustainable and competitive cities, of which its citizens feel part. In the framework of our work, we prepare the Smart Cities study every 2 years. This study takes a global and transversal approach to the different levels where the potential for growth and transformation of a city resides. We are currently working on the 4th edition of this study, where we are focusing on the resilience of cities, and especially on analyzing how the COVID-19 pandemic has induced cities to adopt smart measures to fight the negative effects that the pandemic has generated and that have contributed to the improvement of the resilience. The study aims to understand the pre-pandemic situation of cities, identifying their level of digitalization and the smarter resources and tools they had. Next, we want to analyze what impact of the pandemic had on the different areas of local governance and what new measures or tools were used to combat the negative consequences that were generated. And finally, we want to determine to what extent these types of actions have served to increase the resilience of cities and to assess the usefulness of new measures and tools for combating future crises. In order to carry out this analysis, it is important to count on the participation of a large number of cities in the study, so that it will allow us to know the impact that COVID-19 had in different realities of the world. To collect information, we have designed a questionnaire, which we encourage you to answer. And finally, I'd like to tell you that from Bilbao, we are working on the Smart Bilbao project, which has established objectives and principles and ongoing initiatives. Smart Bilbao is a need that also provides us with a historic opportunity for transformation and a strategic framework that allows us to progress towards a human-centric digital twin. As other cities, teleworking and digital workplaces, the needs join with new models for citizens' attention, not leaving anyone behind, and taking into account the digital divide. The impact of the use of artificial intelligence and big data and automation of different tasks are some of the challenges and fears that we have to deal with, and we are fully convinced that collaborating and working together make them easier to move forward and to achieve fairer and more prosperous and inclusive cities. Thank you very much. Eskerrik asko.
Sí. Eskerrik asko, efectivamente, muchas gracias, concejala. En el chat tienen ya el link para acceder al formulario que podríamos rellenar. It's a very important study for us. The regularity that we are doing it with allows us to compare many things. I think this year it is of particular importance that we have more and more cases, so I truly encourage everybody to join. I want to kind of open the floor now, but I already know that there are 2 speakers that we would be very interested in hearing. I know that we have with us the mayor of Libreville, and I don't know, Mayor, are you ready for a brief intervention? Yes, there you are. Welcome. À vous la parole, monsieur.
Merci beaucoup. C'est Monsieur le maire.
Monsieur le maire, oui.
Monsieur le maire. Merci de m'avoir donné la parole. Et je voudrais, au moment où je la prends, vous présenter toutes mes excuses pour cette connexion tardive liée au caprice, j'allais dire, de la technologie. Je voudrais effectivement très rapidement vous présenter au niveau de notre commune au niveau de la mairie de Libreville, les projets que nous sommes en train de mener pour pouvoir asseoir la numérisation dans notre administration. Jusqu'à présent, les opérations que nous effectuons avec l'informatique, ce sont des opérations basées. Et avec l'arrivée de la pandémie, la nécessité de numériser notre administration s'est imposée. C'est ainsi que nous avons créé dans notre administration une plateforme, une commission de plateforme numérique pour pouvoir justement faire un état des lieux de notre administration et déterminer les différents besoins pour justement asseoir cette numérisation dans notre administration. Parce que pour optimiser notre service public aux citoyens, nous avons l'état civil. Pour le moment, c'est toujours encore un peu manuel. Donc, il est nécessaire qu'à travers un portail informatique, nous puissions atteindre plus facilement les citoyens. Avec la COVID-19, on a bien montré qu'on n'a pas besoin de se déplacer de manière régulière pour pouvoir avoir des informations. Donc, un portail permettrait aux citoyens, depuis leur domicile, de pouvoir avoir accès aux informations concernant la mairie. Pour les citoyens qui n'auraient pas à leur niveau, dans leur maison, des connexions, on se propose de mettre les bornes Wi-Fi dans les différents quartiers pour leur permettre de pouvoir avoir accès. Et même qu'un de mes prédécesseurs a parlé de l'optimisation des recettes, de la lutte contre la corruption. Là aussi, à travers la numérisation, nous allons voir comment optimiser les recettes parce qu'en ce moment, il y a beaucoup de déperditions. Également, concernant les timbres, pour le moment, c'est les timbres que nous commandons et cela a un coût. À travers la numérisation, un timbre numérisé, cela va également permettre d'améliorer les services. Sur le plan interne, là aussi, on veut se servir maintenant de la visioconférence pour qu'en interne, nous puissions avoir des instruments qui nous permettent, d'un service à un autre, à travers justement cette visioconférence, pouvoir communiquer très facilement. De même qu'au niveau de l'adressage, nous avons là aussi mis en place un système que nous allons perfectionner pour qu'on puisse facilement bien se retrouver, bien se localiser dans notre ville. Donc voilà brièvement les projets que nous sommes en train de mettre en place pour pouvoir justement faire en sorte que notre administration s'arrime au numérique. Et tous ces projets vont être quantifiés, vont être évalués, de telle sorte que, en fonction du coût, sur le plan de notre budget, mais également si on peut trouver des financements internationaux qui vont nous permettre donc d'asseoir encore une fois cette numérisation. Voilà, merci de votre attention.
Merci, merci, Monsieur le Maire, Président de CGLU Afrique. Thank you for being with us indeed and for bringing these experiences from Libreville. A lot of focus on accessibility and making sure that everybody is able to connect and to benefit from this service provision, but also from general connectivity. I think what is becoming clear from this session is that is the main priority for our membership. And now as we open the floor and I look back and I invite speakers that have already taken the floor to please let me know if you would like to intervene again, to just share with us some of your thoughts. I would like us to also touch upon some of the issues that the Coalition for Cities for Digital Rights have been covering, you know, under the leadership of cities like Barcelona and Amsterdam and New York. We are working under this coalition, also considering digital rights as a next generation of human rights and dealing with some of the tough questions around artificial intelligence, and data, who owns the data. So I invite you to give reactions to that. If you want, please let me know whether you would like to intervene by raising the digital hand that is available in this platform. And I know that we have also an experience from Africa that we will go back to. But allow me first to give the floor to the mayor of Soria and our special envoy for the new urban agenda, Carlos Martinez, and then we will go to the region of Nouakchott in Mauritania. Carlos, la palabra es suya, alcalde.
Sí. ¿Se oye, Emilia? Hola, buenos días.
Muy bien, sí, sí.
Vale, hola, buenos días a todas y a todos. Intentaré ser muy rápido, ¿no? Yo creo que la situación sanitaria de la COVID lo que ha hecho es acelerar, ¿no?, la digitalización en la prestación de los servicios públicos y nos ha hecho también un esfuerzo, ¿no?, de modernización a las administraciones para intentar llegar a dar cobertura a las más que crecientes necesidades de la prestación de los servicios públicos básicos esenciales a gran parte de la población, ¿no? Pero yo quería, como responsable de la agenda urbana, ¿no?, y como responsable, ¿no?, para el cumplimiento de la Agenda 2030, en esa frase de no dejar a nadie atrás, no dejar ningún territorio atrás, quería poner el foco precisamente en los territorios, ¿no?, y en las necesidades que tenemos las administraciones públicas de modernizar la prestación de los servicios con una adaptación y una modernización al mundo digital, tecnológico, pero también la necesidad de garantizar la conectividad en determinados territorios que precisamente por no ser atractivos a los grandes mercados libres de la conectividad, no se generan las infraestructuras necesarias para poder prestar esos servicios y hoy por hoy no solamente no se le recorta la brecha de prestación de servicios, sino que se le incrementa, ¿no? Hablo de los entornos de las pequeñas ciudades, de los entornos rurales, ¿no?, que han tenido que sufrir precisamente una atención sanitaria que se ha definido como telemedicina, una atención educativa en la que ha primado la conectividad sin los equipos, sin las infraestructuras, ¿no? Y eso ha sido un problema y es un problema real, ¿no? Por eso nosotros, también como gobiernos locales, que se escapa de nuestro ámbito competencial y nuestra capacidad de presión, tenemos que intentar alzar la voz para que se nos escuche a través de los gobiernos nacionales para el desarrollo de un plan de infraestructuras tecnológicas que garantice una conectividad básica en todos los territorios que a su vez puedan garantizar la prestación de los servicios públicos que como gobiernos locales tenemos que poner en marcha, ¿no? Sin esas infraestructuras tecnológicas, con un coste económico muy elevado, es muy difícil, por mucho esfuerzo que hagamos los gobiernos locales, que podamos prestar un servicio acorde a las necesidades que hoy nos demanda la ciudadanía. Nada más.
Sí, no, muchas gracias, alcalde. Creo que muy importante efectivamente esta perspectiva también territorial y la discusión de esa simbiosis que hay entre lo urbano y lo rural, pero cierto es que en muchas partes de nuestra membresía hay un verdadero sufrimiento de infraestructura en las zonas rurales y todos podríamos comentar nuestras experiencias con la telemedicina, efectivamente. Gracias por traer esto a colación y me agrada mucho poder pasar también a esa perspectiva de región, de nuevo en África, la región de Nouakchott. Merci d'être là. À vous la parole, cher ami. Eugène.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Emilia. Merci pour l'ensemble des intervenants. Je vous transmets aussi la salutation de Madame la Présidente Fatima Abdelmalik, qui voulait assister avec vous, mais elle est actuellement en voyage. Mais vu l'importance de ce sujet, je voulais juste partager avec vous l'une de nos expériences sur l'exploitation du numérique durant la période du Covid. Par exemple, donc, dans la stratégie de la participation de la région, de facilitation de l'accessibilité pour les citoyens de Nouakchott, la région de Nouakchott a équipé des salles dans le siège de la région et elle a participé de ce qu'on appelle l'école numérique, c'est-à-dire pour aider les étudiants, surtout les étudiants du niveau du baccalauréat, Donc, elle a fait, durant la période du confinement, un soutien des étudiants pour l'offre, c'est-à-dire à partir de l'offre des études à distance. Donc, elle a choisi des professeurs compétents et elle a équipé des salles de fibre optique de bonne connexion et il a, c'est-à-dire à partir de cette salle ou ces salles, la région a, c'est-à-dire a remplacé le vide ou l'absence des écoles via le confinement qui est obligé par la pandémie COVID-19. Donc, cette expérience a permis, c'est-à-dire, a donné une vision à la région de Nouakchott que nous pouvons, c'est-à-dire baser sur le numérique pour faciliter ou rapprocher les services des citoyens. Donc, bien sûr que nous, au niveau de la Mauritanie, d'une manière générale, nous avons, c'est-à-dire le problème de partage ou de disponibilité de la connexion et de la bonne connexion. Mais en partant de l'existant, la région de Nouakchott a tiré de cette expérience que c'est-à-dire le financement ou l'investissement dans le numérique, c'est-à-dire facilite l'accès des citoyens aux services de base qui est, par exemple, la scolarisation des enfants. Donc, juste cette expérience, je m'arrête ici. Donc, bien sûr que nous avons des autres, à travers nos partenaires au niveau local, c'est-à-dire nous soutenons les startups qui créent des applications pour la facilitation des services comme celle de transport, de delivery et des autres. OK, merci beaucoup, Emilia, juste pour participer avec vous via l'importance de ce sujet.
Merci, non, merci pour partager cette expérience, c'est très important et les efforts importants qui sont faits pour faire acceder a toda la población. Y me gusta quedarnos también en este enfoque más territorial, ahora yendo a América Latina, que no hemos oído mucho porque es muy pronto en América Latina, pero desde el Centro de Mundo de Ecuador tenemos a Edwin Miño, el secretario ejecutivo de Congope, que como saben además lidera nuestro foro de regiones. Edwin, a ti la palabra. And following Edwin, I've got Shemal Bas from Turkey, from the Union of Turkish Municipalities. Edwin, comenzamos contigo. Bienvenido y gracias por madrugar tanto.
No, tranquila. Gracias. ¿Cómo no suscribir lo que dice nuestro presidente alterno, que la tecnología no es un fin en sí mismo, sino un instrumento que deberemos dirigirlo, orientarlo? Por obvias razones, las regiones y la ruralidad es la menos favorecida en ese proceso. Por eso acá en América Latina y en mi país, los gobiernos regionales estamos haciendo mayor inversión en tecnología, porque no tenemos la gente preparada, no tenemos la tecnología ni la infraestructura necesaria. Pero lo que, Emilia, tú nos quieres poner y nos pones en una condicionante que es fundamental, las restricciones administrativas que tenemos para el ejercicio de esta competencia. No puede, como nos decía el compañero de Microsoft, la pandemia es una, pero nos ha ido afectando de distintas formas en los distintos países y regiones. No se puede plantear que las restricciones de competencias sean las que nos enmarquen la no inversión de la ruralidad y no desarrollar esas tecnologías. Nosotros desde el Foro de Regiones nos suscribimos a la agenda urbana y ese pacto con las personas. Nos encontramos desarrollando el eje de conectividad física y digital, dando un enfoque a la transformación y acceso digital equitativo y sostenible, incluso en las áreas más remotas de nuestros territorios. Desde el Foro de Regiones estamos convencidos que la digitalización es una arista importante para avanzar en el desarrollo sostenible. Alguien nos decía, no dejemos a nadie atrás. Es la consigna. La digitalización es parte de nuestra Agenda 2030. Un abrazo fraterno aquí que está amaneciendo desde el Ecuador. Muchas gracias.
Muchísimas gracias, Edwin. Nos queda todavía un día largo por delante, donde contamos con ustedes para las diferentes sesiones. Muchas gracias, de verdad. And I'm going now to Chemal. Chemal, welcome. Thank you for joining us today again.
Thank you, Emilia. It's such a nice meeting. I'm just going to shortly talk about the data management, but the financial perspective of it, because what you said, the question who owns the data is one of the most important question, really. I mean, it is surely that the local authorities owns the data. We know how citizens travel, what are their incomes, you know, their social needs, their health needs, their work needs, where they live, all those data, we do have it. But the problem is when you would like to sell the data, then you face a public tension immediately because you are basically using the data of the public. But then we also see the central governments around the world, they can come up with regulations, and they can also come up with excuses saying such as we need a better governance, so we exchange the data, so you need to share the data with central government. And we have this data which is so much valuable, which is financially very valuable, but then we have to give it free to the central government with these sort of regulations. So that was the problem I wanted to raise. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Emal. I think whatever path we follow with these dialogues and whatever we include on digital rights and digitalization in our pact for the future, the new social contract that we want to develop, we will need to address this issue. It will be extremely important. Sometimes we see it's not only the differentiation with national governments, sometimes we see also how citizens are more willing to provide their private data to applications than to government. We provide a lot of information to social media, while we are very hesitant to provide information to local authorities. And I see the mayor of Kitchener nodding there. Any thoughts on this? Welcome to this discussion as well. And please, speakers that have already taken the floor, Hugh, Noraini, and others that might want to intervene, the floor is still open for about 10 more minutes. But Mayor Brabanovic, would you be ready for some comments?
Sure, absolutely, and thank you, Emilia, and thank you to everyone who has participated so far in today's conversation, because I think it is an important one, and I think that the video actually very nicely summarized the role that cities have played both throughout the pandemic, but more importantly, the role that we're going to need to play as we build back better. You know, in my own community, even here in Kitchener, Canada, which is about 100 kilometers west of Toronto, and we're very much a technology-based community, we were focused on a new economic development strategy being unveiled in the month after the pandemic started. And so we had to put everything on hold and actually use it as an opportunity to rethink things. And in fact, look at how we use part of that strategy to reflect on how we can build back better, how we can use some of the resources that we were setting aside. And we were dedicating $110 million to that strategy, in fact, to economic recovery. And so just a few weeks ago, in fact, I announced our economic recovery program. It's going to focus on a variety of things, including kickstarting the economy over the coming months, particularly for many of our small businesses, our restaurants, and our arts and culture sector, but also looking at how do we support those individuals that we know were most impacted by COVID. And so we're looking at the development of programs that will, first of all, help women-led businesses get started, but also businesses that will be owned by our Indigenous Black and persons of color communities, because we know that they have been most impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic in many of our communities in North America, when we look at the disaggregated data. And so we want to make sure that coming out of this, we in fact create a more equitable and a more socioeconomically just society going forward. So those would be a few reflections for myself, Amelia. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor, for these thoughts. Indeed, if you were on time to see our video on caring, this is what has been driving us during the past year. I think our membership has demonstrated such a leadership, not only as frontliners in their own territories, but also worldwide. When I met with you, with the mayors from around the world, the presidents, the governors, I felt this optimism. Failure was not an option, and we need to come back better than we were. And it's a very different sense than when we attended sessions at other levels of governments, for instance, at the United Nations, etc. So I think you have brought back this spirit, and I think it's the spirit of the dialogue that we're having today. So a last opportunity for other speakers to join, maybe some wrap-up comments, I don't know, from Hugh, the Vice President of Microsoft, from Noirani. Ask for the floor and you will have it. Hugh, do you want to say a few words? Any other thoughts that have come up after these interventions?
Yeah, I think I probably just invite people to think about one more thing, which kind of encompasses really everything that we've talked about today, and it's really to have a structure, to have some sort of template, to have some sort of understanding of where you are from a sort of digital maturity model perspective. And I'm very happy to help anybody out with, I mean, we have a version of that. Other companies have a version of it. But what we've found over time is that having a really clear understanding of where your government or your ministry or your agency or your department sits in relation to a characterization of progress, be that, sort of analog government, kind of, government 1.0, or whether it's digital government, or whether it's moving up into the sort of upper echelons of intelligent government and all the characteristics that means and all the opportunities that provides. To some extent, it doesn't really matter where you are to start with, but it does help. And that's my, sort of suggestion. That's my offer to people. It does help to have a bit of a sort of handrail or a maturity model or a profiling, so that people understand where their organization sits. Because in terms of where you're trying to go, it's the old saying, if you don't know where you are, then it's difficult to get to where you need to go. So I think putting a frame that allows all of the aspirations that we've been talking about, all of those good things that we wish to see for our societies and our cities and our citizens, having a framework in which to support that and in which to contextualize it, and therefore, in order to understand where one needs to make investments and prioritization is a great help. And if anybody after this, would like to talk about that, that's fine. As I say, follow whatever model you wish, but I would advise putting some real structure around that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those words, and indeed, our leadership says in their manifesto that even if they don't know where they are going to be going, because we don't know what the unexpected is going to be. We need to know where we are, and we need to know the kind of model that we want to follow. And I think that fits really well with your suggestion. And we will be very happy to go into that conversation. I think something that we haven't discussed today is how the conversation between the private sector and the public sector probably needs to change a bit, and how do we need to adapt what the private sector is able to provide to deliver, and how the public sector is able to shape some of the products and the applications and the instruments. It hasn't come up today, but we have been having that discussion, and we really look forward to carry on. I don't know, Norani or other leaders, would you like the floor? Yes, Noraini, please. You would be our last speaker today, I think. Please go ahead. Thank you for joining us.
Like any other initiatives towards sustainability that we have been discussing about, the questions of affordability will come forward very obviously, because be it on the government side or the citizen side, the question of affordability will determine how far we can go. I agree with you about knowing where we are and prioritizing the future steps that we are going to take. That is the very important first step that we need to embark upon. But after that, realizing that the government alone can't do it, we need to work with the private sector, and the private sector needs to understand where the affordability of the government itself, so that we can deliver the product, the services to the people at where they need it the most. So the question of affordability, working together, the private and the government sector, whether being in partnership, being in private initiatives, programs, and the government being ready to come in where the market is not there for the private sector to go. I think all of us need to sit together in order to have our digitalization gap be reduced and getting the services to the society that need it most but can't afford it.
Thank you very much, Major Noraini, for these very wise words. I think it's a very good wrap-up of this session. We need dialogue. We need to make sure that we service there where the private sector will not be able to service. In order to do that, we probably need to transform our legislative frameworks. In many countries, they simply do not work. We will need to consider also accessibilities to funding. We need to take care of those that are more vulnerable, and we will need to rethink rights. And as we work together towards the pact for the future, for people, for planet, and for government, I think the discussion on digitalization will be even more important than before. And I think this high-level debate has really given us very interesting inputs to proceed with this discussion around our new social contract. I will be delighted to welcome you later today again to the Committee on Statutory Affairs, those of you that are members of the committees. And we also have the annual meeting of UNACLA, as my colleagues were saying this morning. We'll see you tomorrow in the big meeting of the Executive Bureau with health discussions at the center. Thank you for being there. Thank you for joining us. But above all, thank you for helping citizens and communities around the world. Thank you. See you soon again. Bye.
Thanks, team.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good job, Amelia. UCLGMeets.
Ci dobbiamo dare una mano perché mai come questa volta abbiamo...
Fellow mayors and dear friends, I would like to start my intervention by reminding that local democracy is at the core of who we are as a movement.
各位专家、市长们、朋友们，大家好！今天我们通过鼠标清点和大家见面。而在2000多年前，
comment procéder. Pas de promesses, pas de grands discours, mais une gouvernance efficace, car gouverner pour nous, c'est agir.
Our solutions need to be holistic, and the local space is the perfect place